feeling deep inside that you.
The next thing we want to kind of move on to is how to choose the right attorney. So there are times whenever clients may come to me and we talk about, they may come to me before they hire an attorney, and we'll talk about the types of attorney they would want. And a lot of the times clients, they fall into the trap of like wanting to hire the most aggressive attorney, the sharp. But this is what I kind of tell my clients when I talk to them is like, sometimes that aggressive doesn't mean it's assertive or effective. Aggression, we know it's emotionally draining, first of all. So what I always advise them to do is, hey, yes, I get it. I get what happened. I know you want to go for it, but let's take a step back and just realize like if you are hurting from or angry with your ex and hounding them with an aggressive attorney, does that make the situation better, or is it just going to promote more hurt, more anger long term, and may just even drag your divorce out even longer? So, Nikita, why is it important to have the right attorney represent you?
Oh man, for so many different reasons. The emotional intelligence side of lawyering is one that we don't talk about enough. Not just from the aspect of a client selecting an attorney, but just from how an attorney runs their cases. Asking certain types of questions people don't think about, right? It's important for people to understand the difference between a person being diligent, representing you, in your best interest, and being a shark or a bulldog or whatever other animal people want to, use when it comes to attorneys. And very rarely, but I've even heard it, someone say that about me. And I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing unless I always ask. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean? Tell me what it means. Because like you said, in some instances, if you have a situation where there's already fuel on the fire, there's some things going on, and then you have a person that comes in and they come in hot, and it may not be necessary. I always gauge with opposing counsels, even if it's a hotly contested situation. You want to test the waters because sometimes you can go in and you may be able to reach an agreement on some things that need to be handled immediately.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say that, when individuals are selecting an attorney, there are some things that they should
What are those?
look at. Communication style. Ask when you're interviewing your attorneys, because that's number one. Interview different attorneys. You don't have to interview 10. You don't have to, because some of those people are going to want, or require you to pay a deposit. Yeah. And so you don't, just figure out maybe 3 or 4, to start off, maybe just 3, but interview different attorneys, because you're interviewing them and they're interviewing you as well. And so you want to make sure that you have enough information to make an informed decision. If you only talk to one person, that's a kind of limited view. Now, sometimes you may have a warm handoff, right? One of your coworkers had someone and you talk to them about their divorce, and they talk to you about how their divorce attorney handled their situation, and you liked it, and you're going through a divorce now. You say, hey, I want that person. Nothing wrong with that, but still make sure that you speak with them.
I would still say interview. Yes.
Make sure that you
interview. Yes.
Yeah. Talk to them. Ask them what their communication style is. If you're a person who requires or who wants someone to touch base with them every week, then talk to them about that. Say, well, what's your communication style? How often should I expect to hear from you, if that's important to you?
Okay.
And so, because what happens is, if you don't ask and you have this expectation and you never addressed it, then when the person updates you when something happens, then you're upset. Well, you didn't communicate that is what you require. And on the flip side of that, the more communication we require, the more money we will have to pay, because these individuals are professionals, yes, and so they charge for their time. So that's another thing too. Talk to them about billing. If you know that you're tight with money, you need to let that be known. Why
Don't
do
be
I
scared
say
to hold
that?
back. Is that's the
Right.
thing.
Why do I say that? Your
Yes.
attorney of all people need to know what your financial capability is. And you also need to know how that firm bills,
Yeah.
what they bill for, so that when you get the bill and you see that you talked to me for 30 minutes, you're wondering now why that's on the bill, because it's 30 minutes of my time.
And
You
as
know?
far as like finding like tips on how to find attorneys or where to find the attorneys,
Mhm.
what do you think is the best resources for,
So
anyone?
a lot. Referrals from trusted sources is always good. You have to be careful about the online stuff. I'm gonna tell you why. There's a lot of situations where individuals who maybe have never retained a firm, they may have been on the opposite side and then they go leave a crazy review. So just when you're going through the reviews, I'll say that just go through them and actually read them to make sure that they make sense.
Or not
But
one-off.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Not one that's like one-off because they had it bad.
Exactly. Yeah. It's something, and it has nothing. Like you go on and it says nothing. Oh,
Yeah.
this attorney was horrible. Well, why? You didn't, because most of the time when people have something to say, and they will tell you what happened, But either way, just when you're looking online, just make sure that if you're doing some online research, that those are trusted and reputable sites. Avvo is one that people have used before. I can't say that I would recommend it or anything, but that is a space. AVOO is a space. Avvo, yeah, it's a space where a lot of attorneys are listed, and you can usually search by practice area. A good Google search will always, bring up some individuals, but even with those and even with the reviews, you want to make sure that you contact them and you get a consultation. And that's the other thing that I'm gonna say. Get a consultation, please. Whether it's free, whether it's paid, whatever, there are many attorneys who do both, but it's not uncommon for an attorney to charge for their time. But
Yeah,
get
absolutely.
consultations with these individuals and stop listening to your friends who've gone through divorces who tell you what you need to do, because everybody's situation is different. So you want something, as customized as possible when you're talking about a consultation. And usually those come with you having to put something, down on it. But I mean, you get what you pay for, right?
I agree with you. One of the things that I usually advise is like, and that's something that you said, besides communication skills, is also specialization. Because depending on the type of assets you have, maybe search for an attorney that specializes in that area. For example, if you have a lot of property to buy, maybe focus on an attorney that does property division, maybe child custody, maybe businesses in that you and your spouse may share, and so forth. So what I normally do is start there at least. Yes, know your communication style, but know a little bit more about your case and what kind of types of asset that you have. And from there, I always say, make a list and then create a timeline of your marriage and include all important dates, because this, while you're interviewing, this is the story that you will have to use to share and update your attorney every time you interview them, because you're telling them what's going on. So that way it makes it easier for your attorney to kind of understand what's going on, but also keep you on track with any kind of important details.
Well, we like preparation for sure.
Yeah.
But we don't want people to get too bogged down, especially
Yeah.
if they want to get the information, because sometimes you don't know what you need to know until you talk to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love for people to be prepared, of course. If you could tell me when you're married, because I'm going to ask you that so that I know how long, ask you a few questions about your children, things like that. If you have a home, approximately how much, did you buy it for? Is there any equity in the, things like that. of course, we would want you to have that information when you're speaking with us. But I do want to just briefly talk about specializations, because people get wrapped up in this too. Everybody does not need a board certified attorney. Some people may. Some people absolutely may, like you said. If the person is a high net worth, if they have, very specific things that are related to, the fact pattern in their divorce, then they may want to have a board certified person. That I absolutely think that there's a necessity for those individuals, and it's an honor to be board certified in any of the areas.
Yeah.
But everybody does not need that, and more importantly, most people don't want to pay for that.
That's true.
That is expensive. Board certification is not an easy task, and that is a lot of extra information that a person had to expend money to obtain, and because of that, it's going to show up on your end in the bill. And you don't, if a person, say we have an average divorce, where a person has a home, maybe 401k, something like that, you don't need a board certified attorney for something like that. You do want
you,
to represent you, to the best of their ability, and all of that kind of stuff. But everybody doesn't need that, and everybody can't pay for that.
So but you did say that if you're in that, rephrase that part, because you said that you may need it if you are high.
I'll just say certain circumstances. I don't want to go into who, because I don't even want to say every high net worth person needs a board certified attorney, because I've handled high net worth cases and in the millions, and I'm not board certified. Yeah. So, it just, that's why it's so important as well to interview, so that if you have specific questions as it relates to your property division, like I said, specific to your fact pattern in your divorce, then that's why you want to, grab these consults. Yeah, because, you calling me or my staff on the phone and wanting me to answer all of this in 5 minutes is usually not, the best way to handle it. So I would say, grab a consultation so that you can ask those types of questions.
Absolutely. No, this is really good information. I don't think I meant to say like board certified. I think it's more specific.
No, I'm glad that you said it. Even though you said specialization, like, you could mean something like an immigration attorney, right? Because I've had people to call me and say, hey, I need a divorce, but I also have immigration issue. I make sure to let them know I handle family law divorces, and I have handled those divorces where immigration is an issue, but I pull in an immigration attorney because I'm not an immigration attorney. Yeah. There are some attorneys who practice both family law and immigration. Then that will probably be your best bet, But if you can't, yes, I have the capability, but I am going to consult with the immigration attorney on the case, because I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. Absolutely. So just, as an example, those types of things.
Okay. No, this is really, really, really good information for people to kind of look out for. I think so. Next topic that I think everybody's kind of waiting for, or are waiting for, is just the cost of divorce. One of the things that whenever I sit down with clients or anything is asking them, hey, are you ready for this journey? I'm on there with you. I'll go through it with you, but are you ready physically, emotionally, but most importantly, financially? Are you going to be able to pay for all this? Because, it depends too. And I'm not going to say that divorce is not expensive, or it is expensive. It's just, it can. So
it can be.
Exactly. Are you ready for it? So Nikita, can you break down the various costs associated with divorce?
Sure. I mean, I can give you some examples. I may miss some things, but initially, when you look for an attorney, everybody wants to ask how much. So let's talk about retainers and such, right? Most attorneys, I'm not going to say every attorney, but most attorneys are going to require a retainer. And a retainer is just what it says. It retains the attorney's services for a certain amount of hours based on their hourly rate. Now, because there are different attorneys, we calculate that different ways. most of us take 10, 15 to 20 hours, and we multiply that by our hourly rate, and we say that's what, and we may add a little based on our knowledge of types of cases. But essentially that's what happens when you're talking about an attorney that requires a retainer and has an hourly rate, because you also have an hourly rate. On the other side, you have some attorneys who bill a flat rate, which means that they quote you a rate to handle your divorce or whatever family law issue, but we're talking about divorce right now. They say, give me this amount and I will handle your divorce start to finish. Now, normally they'll have a clause in there that says, however, if we have to go to trial on this, then another amount is due. And that is whether you have a retainer or a flat fee, because I say the same thing in mine. So we
I
do
say that too.
Yeah. So we do that, right? So when you go in, you're going to ask, what are the fees? How much do how much is your retainer? So that's your usually initial cost, outside of if you have paid anything for a consult fee. We're just going to pass by that. That's gone. Yeah. So you'll pay the retainer, and then the retainer does not include court cost, any kind of additional cost outside of the attorney's work. Because remember, the retainer is for the work that the attorney is doing on your case, not any additional fees. So those are going to be charged outside. So filing fee for your divorce, filing fees for anything else that I have to file, anything I have to copy, if I have to send anything, certified, any of those types of things. Those are going to be costs that are outside. Mediation costs, whether you guys decide that you want to go to mediation or whether a court says that you have to go, and that's how you get there. Mediation fees are the party's responsibility. Now, yeah. So,
are these like costs and stuff? Is this something that the client needs to know to ask, or is it kind of discussed in that?
No, it's discussed. It is usually discussed in the beginning of your retaining your attorney. They'll go over all of this. And usually it's also captured in your attorney-client agreement or whatever your contract is called with the attorneys, because we all call them different things. So usually they will go through all of these things, but just giving you an idea of some of the additional costs that may be associated. Also, just talking about cost in general and piggybacking on what we talked about before, heavily litigated cases, contested cases, whatever you want, those that are not agreed, those are going to be more expensive. So, when you come in and you say, hey, I want to fight, I want to do this, I want to call in a therapist, I think this person is psychotic, we need a doctor. Listen, that sounds great. Great. Do you have the funds for all of this that you want to do? Because you will be so surprised at what is connected to all of these things that you're asking for, and the money doesn't come out of thin air. You have to have the money up front for the attorney to perform these services that you're asking them to perform.
Is there any ways or strategies of minimizing costs? Perhaps?
Sure. Yeah. On the front end, of course, being more amicable where you can be. Does that mean that you compromise on important things? Absolutely not. I would never tell anybody to do that. There's certain things that you just cannot compromise on, and I understand why. Yeah. But if there are things that you can come to an agreement on, if you can go to mediation, that, of course, that's going to save you money. And I feel comfortable saying that, because I know that if you have something that can be settled in 6 months via mediation versus something that is drawn out over the course of 2 years. Yeah. I mean, what do usually that's going to last, that's going to be more money that you're going to have to spend the longer that something lasts like that, especially if it's a heavily litigated case, meaning that we're always in front of a judge, right? So in terms of minimizing, some other things that you can do to minimize the costs is in your selection of the type of divorce that you want to, have. Of course, if you can go into mediation, or if you can go into collaborative. Now, understanding, like I said before, there are other factors in collaborative that can cause you to, expend more time there. But, sometimes we can get done faster, and with, less resources.
So if someone comes to you and a client says, "Hey," and obviously we talk about cost, but what are some ways that a client could help get, have money to pay for hiring
Mhm.
and going through
So
a divorce?
what I tell people, if I get the opportunity to speak with them before they actually file for divorce, usually I talk to people when they're about to file, but sometimes I talk to people before they make the decision. And I say, once you make that decision, right, and you say to yourself, this is the road that I want to go down, you want to start thinking about cost. You want to start thinking about how you can save, money. And also, some other things that people don't think about are asking family members. I know that sounds a little bit out of the way, but we do that for a lot of different things. We ask our family for a lot of different things. And I've had clients who have actually done that and they've been surprised. Also, there are new ways for individuals to finance their divorce. And you ask your attorney or the attorneys that you're interviewing, ask them if they have any payment systems available. Do they have any connections with payment processors that may have loans available? Like my firm, I do. Now, I can't guarantee that you're going to be able to get that amount or get the amount that you want, because they do base it on, credit history and things like that. But I can say that that's an option.
Yeah.
And a few of my clients have taken that option, because even though they have a job and things like that, they don't want to expend all the money up front, on the divorce. They may need that cash later for the divorce. So, it's a lot of different reasons why people have chosen loan options, but those are things that are available in some spaces, but you have to ask.
Yeah. So as far as like clients utilizing money from a joint account, how do you frown upon it there? I know the ideal way is to have your own account, have your own savings that you had in your name and use those funds. But most of the times, couples, they have joint accounts. So could they use
That's
that?
murky. It's murky water. And so I don't want to really answer that. But what I can say is that, when you have joint accounts and things like that, those things are considered community property. So tread lightly. When I speak to people before they get married, one of the things that I always say is that it would be great to have separate accounts and have understandings from both parties that these accounts are separate. Usually you do that through a prenuptial agreement, but usually when people get to us at this state, is too late to talk about that. But for anybody else who may be listening who is not married, then definitely look into that.
I am a huge proponent of that. There is nothing wrong with that, to have a joint checking account, joint savings, but then also have your separate checking account and separate savings account. There is nothing wrong with that.
At all.
You.
Yeah.
Great. So yes, you did great. You hit us with, I know we hit you guys with a lot of information, but good information. Is there any kind of closing thoughts that you may have, Nikita, on everything?
I guess the only thing that I would say is what I said earlier. If people don't take anything else away from this particular live, I just want people to understand that they do have or possess the capability to steer their divorce, both parties. And it doesn't mean that it's not emotionally taxing, even if two parties are amicable. it still can be emotionally taxing because it's changing of seasons. Things are different. It takes a while sometimes for your body and your mind and everything to catch up. But what I can say is that a lot of this is about mindset more so than what people like to believe and give credit to. So the better off that you are in that space, I think that the smoother your divorce can be, but also understanding that this goes for both parties, because you can also have a difficult divorce because one person does not have that mindset. So, if people can talk beforehand, if they're in the space to be able to do it, I say do it. Sometimes you can't. If you can't, then don't put yourself in harm's way, emotionally, physically, or otherwise. But if you can sit down and have a conversation with that person, then I say absolutely, try to do that and figure out between you two, how do we want to play this? Like, that's an important question. Like, how do we want this to go?
Yeah.
So I think that that's what I would, leave with. Conflict equals money. Sometimes it's necessary. If it is, go for it. There are certain things that we have that are priorities in our life, like our children, things that we worked hard for. But on the other hand, if there's a way for you to do this and have things to be more intact, especially if children are involved, then I would say, look at that. Try to look at that space.
No, that was such good advice. Very, very good advice. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in with us on Divorce is Not a Bad Word, episode 2. If you missed it, no worries. The link to the stream will be in my bio and also Nikita's, so you can listen to it at your own pace. Again, if you know anyone who's contemplating divorce or currently going through a divorce, send in this stream to them. Nikki and I just want to provide valuable resources to anyone that needs it. With that being said, and how Nikita closed it off and said, mindset is everything. And that's what's going to help you with the cost of your divorce. Our next live stream will be on Wednesday, May 3rd, titled Mindset Equals Money. We believe that your divorce team should include an attorney, a CDFA, and a therapist to kind of help navigate you through the process. And with that being said, we will have a guest speaker who is a certified therapist to discuss how important it is to get your mind right before, during, and after a divorce, and how it could potentially save you overall money. So mark your calendars, and we will see you next time.
I got a feeling deep inside